What I think is happening, I mean, just from where I'm sitting, it just seems to me that the US is moving towards this model of the local obsessed model. The US is trying to evolve into Europe. The US, I think, is moving more towards a traditional European food model. Whether or not people in the United States are thinking about it this way, and I kind of don't think they are, and I don't know if they want to think about it this way, but what the Europeans have always done, we're now sort of doing and calling it sort of like locavorism. This is Michael Pollan says this. He says, eat food that your grandparents would recognize. And I think in Europe, people still eat food that their grandparents would recognize. And obviously, it's different country to country. Processed foods are making inroads.
But I think here people know, even if they're not eating it that way, they know what their grandparents were eating.
Yeah.
Or their grandparents had a cultural tradition that was like very strong. Whereas my grandparents, I don't think they had a very strong food tradition. I think they were too sort of already kind of...
I know a little bit about what my grandparents ate, but I wouldn't know how to get back to that. I mean, could read the cookbooks, but...
When you guys say Europe, that's probably your vision of Europe. This is true. Food is more than fuel here, culturally, especially for the old people, and that's something that we inherited. And for instance, the glass of wine is still like cultural, just a glass of wine. So you don't drink a lot, you don't need a lot of food and things like that. What is called the French paradox is a little bit a reality, I think, in the whole Western Europe. But for the first time, I think, in history, we don't share a lot of moments with the family because there's no time, there's no way to make schedules work. So we don't make meals as long as before. We don't have 2 or 3 generations seated at the table. Our mindset is still there, the culture is still there, but...
I think that Europe is less far gone. Convenience culture has been around in the US for so long that it seems like it would be so hard to fix it. In Europe, it seems like less far gone. It seems like this is a more recent thing, which means that it might be easier to step back from it. But when you think about how people used to eat together, if you read dieting tips, one of the tips is always to eat with other people and not eat alone in front of the TV, because you'll actually eat less if you're eating with other people.
Because you talk, you share, and
you're talking, and you feel like your body has time to realize that you're full, right? So.
Well, even the fact that we would eat eat something walking on the street. I think Nika was the one who first told me, it's so weird, people will be eating when they're walking on the sidewalk.
That was not a part of my mindset.
If I ever start to try to eat in the kitchen, something sort of just for a second, standing up, he's like, what are you doing? What do you
So the fast snacking, and snacking a lot during the whole day, that was totally new for me. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that existed at all.
You were saying before that you think it's happened really fast. This move toward local eating has happened really fast.
Yeah, but it's in New York, it's a style thing too. I mean, it's also with that mystique of however something becomes a trend, it's become very cool and people just become obsessed with eating, and then you become obsessed with the ingredients. And so I'm not sure how most of people found their way into it. I mean, I know people who are obsessed with ingredients because don't cook, probably never really will, but they love to eat out. And then so in that way, it's trickled down from the chefs. I think some people come to local food that way. Some people have always loved to cook, and now this is just sort of New York has become an amazing place to be a food shopper. But it sort of took over. It's very much the style. And even the way people dress and sort of the way people socialize,
What do you mean?
There's this sort of farmer chic right now. It's totally it's really nuts.
Do you think that it's just a passing trend though?
It's taken over the cities in this really, really crazy way. Can that diffuse to the suburbs? Can that diffuse to the exurbs where you have to drive 40 minutes to get anywhere? I don't know. But the affordability seems to be the challenge right now. But people throw their money away on all this garbage too. I mean, so you have to get people to really rethink the way they're eating everything.
Some people, this New York writer, Safran Foer, he became vegetarian just because of how meat is processed and how these animals are living. Even taking out all these other considerations like the pain of the animals and how it's gross, right? Because you don't get the feeling that comes from an actual animal. So these people, just young celebrities like Jonathan Safran Foer, these people become vegetarians just because of that. That's like something that tells you more than a trend. It's like a way of thinking that is becoming more and more.
And even I think the catchphrases help too. Like even the fact that people are now, Michael Pollan, eat mostly plants.
Eat less.
Eat food. Right.
Eat food. Not too much, mostly plants. Is that it?
You think that one of the risks would be to see these people just as city snobs trying to market their snobbery to the middle America or something? Is Michael Pollan too snob for America?
I think those ideas are trickling down to places where it's really going to hit. Like if you read about something in the New York Times, you know, it'll hit mainstream America if then it ends up in USA Today, you know. And like the big manufacturers, like corporate food, they know that they have this huge new audience to market to. And I think one way the sort of organic movement has taken hold is, it seems to me that they're really going after, and going after sounds sinister because I think it's a good thing, but like they're really trying to scare mothers about the dangers of some of the things, like the processed things they feed their children, which is very, very effective way to get at women who are, let's say, middle-class women who go to the grocery store and like if they're afraid of the hormones that are in the milk, they'll buy the organic milk and it's more expensive, but it won't be more expensive if they do more of it. I mean, awareness of that stuff is starting to really go mainstream. Like people are starting to get scared of the industrial food chain. At the same time, they're like eating. It's like it like somehow doesn't connect to like eating fast food, but it should, but it doesn't. But yeah, there's sort of like little bits of information are kind of starting to float around.
There's a term being used lately, which is greenwash. Is the industry going to spend a lot of money on the wrong things, or they are just going to try to figure out how to make actual healthy food?
It seems to me like will it actually be more expensive for them to make healthier food? Like I don't know.
Let's say you have a vending machine with carrots or salads, and you have another one with sodas, and you have another one with the typical vending machine stuff. Some people argue that the carrots are going to remain there.
So the argument there is that the well is already poisoned, and you can't teach people to love eating raisins if they grew up eating like chocolate covered raisins, like, right? But at the same time, you kind of like get used to things, right? Like I used to eat so much meat, and I still do eat meat, but I eat a lot less than I used to, and it's just like you form habits, right?
Yeah. I remember when we first started the website, people were talking about getting back in touch with your food pathways, you know? It just sounded like such a catchword. I didn't connect to it at all, but now like I get it. Like, you know, wanting to know where things come from and wanting to know how things are made, and not just wanting to go out and buy something in a package and, you know, bringing it home, and it's not even just to be healthier or just to be, you know, it's also just because you want to know.
Yeah,
Like,
you want to know. I mean, so I really don't cook a lot of meat at home. Like most of the meat I eat is out. But like, you know, I was like gonna make hamburgers this summer. I was going to a barbecue and I was gonna make hamburgers, and I stopped at the store, and all they had was the normal meat that you find at any American supermarket, like in the white styrofoam tray, and it's like packed and full, it's mushed down with the saran wrap. And like this, I grew up eating this stuff, and I looked at it and I was like, this is so gross. Like, because we're at a point where you're used to being in a situation where you're like, here's where the beef comes from. And then when it kind of just shows up out of nowhere, you're like, oh God, you know, this could be like, it feels dirty or something, which is ironic because the whole package is, you know, the whole American meat industry is supposed to be about like the sterility, right? And it sort of comes from this place, you know, it's placelessness. So I bought it, and everyone's like, where'd you get this?